Hello, today I'm going to talk about some of the text settings you can use and where you can find more than just the default setup. So with text, you're going to create it with the capital T type tool, which you guys got a chance to play around with on your um, focal point emphasis assignment. Horizontal type tool, and you can just simply click and say, um, supposed to say hello, but I don't like that font, so I'm going to change it, right? So you can play there. You have font options up here, so you can pick some other font that you may want to use. All these demos, I seem to be using Enter a lot. Come on, use Enter. With a lot of these fonts, when you pick them, get down Enter this way so you can see it. A lot of these fonts that you may have installed, there may be a little arrow, and when you click on the arrow, you'll open it up and see there's actually a whole lot of different font families, a lot of font weights, right? So you can have some very thin ones all the way up to some very thick ones. So you can select it there, or right here, once you pick the font family, you can pick which type it is here. So that works really well to get your bolds or multi-bolds or super bolds or whatever you want to call them. We can adjust size. And the size tool here has some limited options. So I can type something in or pick one or say, you know what, I really want it to be about that big. But in the visual world, a lot of times you don't necessarily care how big it is. You just want it to look the right size. So this is cool. If you hover your cursor on this little t, big T here, and you click and hold with your mouse and the left mouse and drag to the left, it'll make your text smaller, or drag to the right, it'll make your text bigger. So it gives you the option of very easily just sizing things up or down, which is really kind of nice. Skipping over this stuff because that don't matter. We're going to come over here and you have the ability to just do centered left or right. We can pick our color with this box here. Those are good starting points, but we also have a few more things I want to show you and get into. So we have this little manila folder icon here. If you click that, that's actually going to open up your character and paragraph panels. The paragraph panel doesn't have a whole lot for what we're going to be playing with, but you can do some more of your left, right, center. You can play with indents and some other things. You'll spend more of your time in the character palette or panel. And this one's actually really cool. You have some of the same settings. You can pick your font, you can pick your weight, you can pick your size, but you also have a bunch of other things that you can play with. And actually, I would like uh, 2 lines of text so you can see that. Move this up. So with this, and with your text selected, we have this thing called leading, and it's the little A stacked with a little arrow. This is your line spacing, and so you can get negative line spacing, so your text is stacked on top of itself, or we can space it out further. Again, all of these have that same trick where you click and hold with your mouse and drag right or left to go up or down values. So that's really nice to be able to play with that. We have these guys here, which play with spacing, but the one you'll use a lot more is this VA in bold here. That is your letter spacing. So you can use this to space out your letters, and it'll affect or pull them together, right? You can play with spacing there. We have these vertical and horizontal, and what these do is it allows you to play with just the vertical or horizontal separately from each other. So it can make something that's really tall but not affect the width. Or vice versa, I can take something and make the letters themselves really wide or really itty bitty skinny without affecting the height, which is kind of nice. All of these work in concert with each other. So it's whatever's selected. It could be the entire thing. It could be individual words. It could be individual letters. So I'm going to do like my 2 L's for hello. And I have this other one. It's the big A with a little A and an arrow. That's called baseline shift. And you can see there's a line that all the letters are sitting on. That baseline shift allows you to shift that base up or even down. and it lets you play a little bit, be a little bit more fun and funky with how you're arranging your elements. We have a whole bunch of interesting little pieces here, a bunch of T's in different configurations. These little icons will let you do a few things. One is a faux bold. Just a fake bold. It usually doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. Um, Much better to use the options up here, options bar, or over here for your weight. Same thing with italic. You can do italic here, and it just sort of knocks stuff over. Again, if you have the choice for your font, much better to use the built-in family for that. We have a couple other ones that you may use more. The two capital T's, little twins, if you click that, it forces it into all caps. You also have one called small caps. And in this case, what it's doing, no small caps, what it's going to do is let you, give me a capital H. Of course, you don't want to let me do the capital H or the capital T. Hello. I don't know why it's not letting me do that, but okay. So I have a capital and lowercase. Um, with that, what it does is it forces everything into all caps, but as you guys can see, the first letter becomes bigger. Um, we can also do superscript and subscript. We can force underline or strike through and get some effects that way. We also have some more advanced things we can do, and these are depending on the font itself and the font family. We can do all these stylistic alternates, and we can do what are called ligatures. And ligatures are certain letter combos that a lot of times always stick together. So instead of being a separate A and an E, it might put the A and the E together. You've probably seen that sort of effect before. Um, some of the alternates are kind of nice depending on the font. It may or may not have them. If you want to know what's possible for each of your fonts, in addition to all of these tweaks, including some of these bits and pieces, there's also a thing called Glyphs. To open up Glyphs, you actually have to hit Window and Glyphs. But this lets you know all of the characters that are available in that particular font family. And depending on what you're doing, you can actually subdivide this giant list. Some of these may have hundreds and hundreds of different shapes and glyphs or marks types of things. So if you want to quickly search for a certain currency type or a numerator or those stylistic alternates, and this will give you some of those special effect letters. A lot of times work for different languages and that kind of thing, but sometimes it may be just neat extra little swashes or swirls for things like a letter Y. You might have a curve down and have another one that's like a big fancy ending one. So lots of possibilities for your text here. So worth exploring, worth seeing what you can do here. I'm going to take all this back to here. I don't want that baseline shift. Set that back to 0 if it'll let me. All right. So on top of all of that stuff, which is always what we call non-destructive, you can always go back and fiddle with the settings. You're not making any of this permanent. We also have another one that's a lot of fun to play with. And that's this icon up here. When you're in your type tool, it's a little T on a hill, a T on a curve, and this is called warped text, which just sounds fun. I want to warp my text, or my text is really warped, dude. And with this, it's just these pre-built routines where you can play with text and you can curve it up or you can curve it down. You can make it so that it starts small and gets bigger. Some of these you can create some really ugly variations, but you know, it's cool that you could do. Season to taste and get whatever effect you want. The one limitation you have with this is you only get one option. These are non-destructive, and we have all these different options and sliders. And you can't say I want an arc and a bulge. You're stuck with just one of these. But within this, you can get a lot of cool things. Arcs are nice. The arc lower and upper are kind of nice. You can see what this is doing is leaving the top mostly straight, not perfectly straight, but mostly straight, and then the bottom curves, or vice versa. You can sort of see the shape that it's trying to follow. And then the arc upper is just the opposite. All right, you can get some cool effects. Um, Explore, try, see what kind of cool things you can do. A lot of times I really like using the flag. That one just gives it a little wonkiness. That one's can be kind of fun. The wave one is similar, but that one can give you some fun little wonkiness, something a little bit more playful. Inflate is fun because it just turns it into like kind of a weird balloon filling up. Or the opposite is squeeze, and we can squish it in, right? Or stretch it out, right? So you can have a lot of fun playing with these. The cool thing again is these are non-destructive. You'll see that your thumbnail in your layers turns into the little T on a hill. So you can always double click on this, go back, play with the settings, change it to something else, and say, you know, I really wanted to do a fisheye because why not, right? Um, and it's still text, so I can go back and change the text. Fully editable, lots of fun to play with. So I encourage you to dig a little bit deeper than just the default settings for your text and see what else you can do to make your shapes a little bit more interesting. All right, and thank you.